Welcome back to episode 2 of Inside the Channel. This is Inside Scoop, a recurring segment focused on what's actually happening across the channel right now. It's built from real conversations with partners, vendors, and carriers, giving you a clear pulse on the market. Think of it as a regular and timely check-in on the themes, challenges, and opportunities shaping the industry. This isn't guest-driven. It's our perspective from inside the ecosystem. What we're hearing, what partners are navigating, and how the landscape is shifting. The goal is simple. Pull back the curtain and give you an honest, real-time view of the channel. So with that, let's kick things off by sending it over to our CMO, Terra Bastolich.
Hey guys, Terra here. Just wanted to come back to you for Inside the Channel. Today we are going to have our first segment of Inside Scoop, and joining me is Miles Hensel, of our regional sales team here. Miles, you want to give us a quick introduction of you and your role?
Sure. Well, you might already know me, I would imagine, but for everybody back home, my name is Miles Hensel. I am the Central Regional Sales Executive that covers Minnesota down through Texas. I've been here for 8 years now. I get wireless, and I've been everywhere from writing your orders for you to handling small accounts to now the major account role. So I've been around the block a couple of times.
We love having Miles here and in the office. He's always a smiling face. I think many of you have probably met him over the years at some of our events, and always great to have you here as a cheerleader for the Get Wireless team.
Thank you. That's something I've tried to be, and hopefully I'm good at it, but thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
So today we're going to get to dive in a little bit on topics that we're seeing within the channel community. And so each time we have the segment for Inside the Scoop, I'm going to bring one of our regional sales managers or somebody from the Get Wireless team to join me and help me bring that pulse to you and what we're kind of hearing. We feel like we're a conduit in the middle of the channel, allowing us to get information and hear kind of the challenges, the things that are happening from our vendors, but also mostly from our channel partners. And we want to bring that information to you, share it. We're not going to know the answers to every one of these problems. We're not going to have great insights in every one of the challenges that may be facing or opportunities that are out there, but we just want to be a communication path and platform for our customers. And so it's great that we've got a lot of partners that are out there talking to our teams like Miles that are feet on the street. We call them boots on the ground, talking to customers. So we're excited to share some of those today.
Yeah, oftentimes I think of my job as the phone switch operator from back in the day. You call me, you say, what can I do for you? And I move you over to the right place. A lot of my day is like that, but that's between the customers, the internal resources, and then the vendors and the carriers. I have to know everybody. So exactly what you just said is exactly my day job. It's just knowing everybody or knowing how to get you to somebody who can help if I don't have the answer. You nailed it for sure. It's
one of those things we've said for a while is we really appreciate being the middle of the channel. And when you're in the middle, you get to see a lot of different pieces of it. So we're going to jump into the 3 themes that we found. So as we've talked to customers throughout this period of time, and we're going to make this somewhat timely. The idea is that we're going to do this quite often, maybe every month, every quarter. We're going to make it timely of what we're seeing in this period of time. And the first one that came up is, if you look at the last 3 to 6 months, we've seen a major theme around acquisition, which we find very interesting. It has impacted us in our business. It's impacted 6 of our partners that have come into 3 larger organizations. And so it's really interesting and exciting. And I know, Miles, you've personally worked with some of these customers. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, no, it's, that's just the last 3 to 6 months. You and I have been at this company for several years, and we've seen it, it's been cyclical over the last couple of years. But as far as the ones I've been handling, it's interesting. There's a few months where, there was some growing pains and getting to know the new systems or whatever that might be. But it's exciting to see the company being acquired by the newer one or the larger one, so to speak, because they have all these new tools and resources and dollars and people in positions where they can help the old company out or the acquiring company out, rather, and some of the stuff that they couldn't do before. So it's overall really good. It's just a few months of growing pains, and after that, you can see the huge potential that everybody has. But I understand we're having a show on that here pretty soon, right?
Yep, we are. I mean, I think it's probably the largest topic that we've seen as we look at from a distributor, talking with our vendors, from our perspective of one of the impacts and themes that we're seeing. And it's really interesting because we're going to dive into it a lot more. We've got a segment coming up. We're going to actually interview some of the partners that have been impacted. We've seen companies like Source and INS. We've seen Simple Innovation Group and Masters Telecom. CSG and 5G Store is probably the most recent. So again, we've asked them to join us on the show.
Sweet.
We're going to really dig into that in the coming episodes and get their perspective, because it's really interesting, the diversity in the channel community, and then what that looks like when they come together.
Well, I know you said these are our large partners, but I think it's probably worth noting that these are our top 10 partners. Everybody that you're kind of just listed out, these are all somewhere in our top 10 on some level or another. So it's a huge thing that, it's not just, our number one buying our number 50. It's, our number one buying our, whoever, and so on and so forth. It's a lot of movement for sure. And we got to be well positioned to make sure that they're staying with Gateway Wireless and they're not, moving their buying practices somewhere else. Once they get acquired, right? That's number one thing on my mind. But it's going to be exciting to see what you guys uncover on that episode. I'm going to be a watcher for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be great, especially for our partners that may be considering that. There's always an opportunity to look at what's the next step in your business. A lot of the traditional demographic of the channel partners that we work with are small businesses. They're looking at ways to grow. They're looking at ways to be more efficient. They're looking at areas that may be weak in their business that could be strong for somebody else, and how they could come together. I think the other piece is that one of the themes that we've had overall with Get Wireless, and really in part of the Inside the Channel, is these are some really great people as well. And the people in our channel community get to know each other and they trust each other. And there's a lot of business conversations where they help each other out. And then that leads to something that becomes a little bit more official, right? That has some dollar signs and probably some lawyers, but there's a lot of times those conversations start because they all know each other in our community.
Yeah. What's the whole saying? It's same face, different logo, different polo, whatever it is.
Yes.
Always. I've only been here for 8 years, and you've been in the industry for longer than that. And the number of people I've seen with the same face, different polos, it's constant, So you got to make sure you're always keeping them happy and never burning any bridges, because next thing you know, they'll be part of a bigger, company, or you'll see them down the road. Right. So 100% it's important.
I think that's the key. So we won't go into it too deep because we've got a whole nother segment coming. We'll be dissecting that very much so, and having some really great guests and speakers coming on to join us. So tune in for that. The next theme that we'll kind of move into is really this carrier momentum that we're seeing. This is really important to me. I'm here leaning into our strategy with the carriers and what we're seeing. I find that the carriers in general, I will go on record to say, are leaning in more than they ever have. And there's always been this perspective of where sometimes they're saying they're leaning in, and I don't know that the rubber is hitting the road and we're actually feeling the impacts of it. But I can say all 3 tier 1 US operators we work with as a part of our connectivity program and our business development strategy are leaning in. Do you feel like you see that with the partners and in the field?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's 3 tier 1 carriers, like you just said. And it's interesting seeing all 3 of them do the same, or trying to solve the same problem in their own flavor, right? And so I think since I've been here, since you've been doing the coastal mobility program and everything you've been doing with the carriers, it's just interesting seeing some are trying to emulate others, some are doing it better than others, some are attacking it from a different approach. So it's just, really, I feel like half of my lead source at one point or another starts and ends with the carrier, right? And so, I know you adopt that philosophy pretty well. But truly, anytime I have a partner-led thing, there's a lot of times it's started with the carrier. And then, of course, beyond that, the partners and the VARs and whoever else might be obviously has their own lead sources, but most of the big ones almost always have an element with the carriers. So just to make sure I heard you right, you said you're going to have one episode for each of the 3 coming up?
Yep, we will have episodes for each of the carriers that are going to be joining us. So I think that's a prelude coming into timeliness of this coming out is right before we go into channel partners. Channel partners this year is going to be, I keep joking, it's kind of the prom of the industry. We've seen a shift from other events that were strategically more important to some vendors and to some wireless, participants and different kinds of organizations, not only distributors, not only channel partners, but we see channel partners is an indication, again, back to that same structure that we're seeing of the carriers leaning in.
Yeah,
the carriers are doing more. Mm-hmm. We never saw that in the past. If you go back 10 years, that was not the case that we saw. And I think we're really excited about it. We think it's been good as we've been there for many years and watching this momentum. Mm-hmm. But we're also now going to actually sit down with each one of them, do a segment. So we will have a segment for each one of those. But I want to circle back to one of the things you said is the partners have their perspective on what they're looking for when working with a carrier. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because the carriers all have their own strategy. Mm-hmm. But most recently, we've been able to actually work with all three carriers together and kind of even putting them back to our partner summit. We put them on a panel together where they all came together. And that's something you wouldn't have seen in the past. Okay. And this was their idea. And one of the reasons they said is we all have the same goal. We all are here to show our commitment from our executive level down to show that commitment coming into the partners. And they were okay with sharing that stage, like jumping off of each other's messages, working together on building that message into the community. Right. And it's very interesting because we all know they're very competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the flip side, if you look at everything we sell, I don't think we sell a single router and gateway without 2 SIM slots in it, as an example. So while you're not going to get the first one, they have a secondary one for a reason. Or if you have a dual radio device, that's 2 actives, right? Right. And so there's no reason why it can't be an AT&T primary deal and Verizon and T-Mobile in the back in the second SIM, right? Yeah. So to your point on everybody being one big, happy family, while they're competitive, it's only smart of them to, see themselves as friends too, because otherwise they're going to miss out on a bunch more opportunities than they would realize if they're, putting themselves, as the only competitor and have to bring them down a peg and everything like that. Instead, with the resellers, they have them all under one umbrella. And then look, what do you know? This BR2 Pro or this XR90 or whatever it might be with two radios in it will have, 2 tier 1 carriers. So it makes sense to be friends for sure.
Well, I think they're finally having their same goals in mind and they're setting aside any differences or any competitive threat to say, this is for the good of the channel community. Mm-hmm. The piece I'll just mention is before, again, we'll get into these sessions and we'll talk with them individually. They'll all share their perspectives, but it's really nice to see that we're getting a lot of executive support because there's always been channel communities at every one of these operators. But this is really resonating with some of the new leadership you're seeing in the tier 1 operators, which I think is great. And it's exciting for me because obviously I believe in it. Mm-hmm. I've believed in it a long time. We see great success. Any partner that's out there, I encourage you to continue to work and build relationships with the operators. They know where deals are. They can be advocates for deals. They can be also a problem in a deal. If they don't know you, they don't trust you, they don't trust the product, they don't know the product that we've recommended.
And you wouldn't believe it's constant that people are dealing with these huge projects and then they don't know the carrier rep that might live 10 miles away from their own address, right? That are doing that $1 million thing or the 10,000 piece, whatever. It could be any story for the large ones. It is surprising to me that they don't all know each other. You just think they would. And it's easy to assume they would, but it's one of our jobs on our level is to help bridge the gap in the event that they don't know them. So it's an everyday thing for sure.
We're happy to make those introductions. So we find that customers can come to us, say, hey, we'd like some introductions. We'd love to do a training with a local carrier team. There's lots of opportunities. So we'd love to encourage people to reach out to you or anybody on our team.
What was the stat last year? I forgot. You guys did 50 plus, or no, you guys did more than that for on-site visits with the carriers. Was it 200?
Yeah, we did hundreds of on-site visits and like lunch and learns. We did a lot of Topgolf. There's lots of great ways to engage with the carriers. So we encourage everybody to do that. And we're happy to be involved in that, but it's also great to see the channel community that builds those relationships on their own.
Yeah, I would say that's something for my territory as a slice of the story. I need to be doing better about that. Just getting your team engaged as far as getting my resellers, integrators into those doors as well. So we're all doing the same activities on different levels. Might as well just, attack it from one place. So it makes sense.
Absolutely. So we look forward to hearing more from them. If you're going to be at Channel Partners, I encourage you to stop by and see us because we will be there. But also there's a bunch of sessions. All of the tier 1 operators, I believe, have a main spot on the stage. They will be talking and addressing the channel community. I think it's a great opportunity. If you're looking to sit down with one of them, we also can facilitate that. We're going to transition into another theme. I think as we reached out to the community and said, what's one of the biggest newsworthy things that you're hearing? We got numerous references back to this FCC notification that has to do with devices. In particular, as we know, Get Wireless's product line is focused around modems, routers, and gateways. So we took a quick look at this, obviously as did a lot of our vendors. I'm assuming most of our listeners have probably heard something about that if they're in the channel, but I'll recoup and then I kind of what that said. So there was an FCC released statement on March 23rd of 2026. The executive branch determined and noted that that foreign produced routers, one, introduce a supply chain vulnerability that could disrupt the U.S. economy, critical infrastructure, and national defense. Second, pose a severe cybersecurity risk that can be leveraged to immediately and severely disrupt U.S. critical infrastructure and directly harm U.S. persons. Really, this comes down to, I wanted to read it directly because there's a lot of people that summarize it, and I don't feel that I'm qualified to summarize that as my perspective on it.
Comment on it. We're not the lawyer.
Comment on it. We're not going to get political. No. The idea here is to talk about a couple of the key pieces, and then I just want to have a little bit of a discussion of how we feel this impacts our partners. The piece here is really around, they talk about the cyber threat, and then they talk about the other key thing is just supply chain. And I think there's, validity in both. There's some areas of I think information that maybe isn't, that isn't known or really addressed or identified yet.
Yep.
And then I'll just clarify too for listeners that, the FCC is impacted. They have what they call a covered list. This is the list of communication equipment and services that are deemed to pose an unacceptable risk. So they update that list. So I want to always clarify what that means. To me, a covered list sounds like a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
As a marketer, and I feel like that's an unacceptable
positive
term.
Spin.
It's a weird term to me. So I just want to say that to our listeners, but I'll kind of stop there. And what was your perspective on it, Miles?
Well, okay, that day was a bit of a shock because I don't know if anybody in our industry was expecting a news story like that directly impacting everything that we could potentially be selling, right? So naturally, I sent off my articles to some key people, and then next thing I know, I'm starting to get emails left and right from customers, rightfully so, that are concerned. But I spent a good I want to say 4 hours that day reading through the FCC site, news articles, watching what I can, and you already touched on it. Our top everything we sell rather is not going to be impacted by that. Those are some soft statements that I believe everybody has come back with. I'm not sure if there's going to be any kind of PR blast saying that, but we're able to at least say that with confidence that nothing we sell is consumer graded, right? Which should not be impacted here. Now, the other thing is, we don't know what's next. So all we can do is roll with the punches, but everything that we can learn and we have research and everything like that looks like we're okay.
Right.
But on the flip side, while this could be a negative to think about, I wanted to think about it more in a positive light. Because again, being limited on selling different things on paper looks like a negative. But then I started thinking about it. If this consumer grade stuff starts to become less available, if you can't go to like Best Buy and find some of the stuff you might get for your house, you can buy things that we sell on our level and through a reseller that we sell to, right? So a lot of the stuff is, enterprise and maybe prosumer or so on grade.
Yeah.
It's not going to be banned through what I can tell is being banned from the FCC.
Right.
So that could be a huge potential for all of our listeners and current customers. Is I think this is huge potential for us if you can't buy a home router of any kind.
Right.
Again, I don't know what that's going to look like in the stores, but at a minimum, if somebody's freaking out, we'll have we have a warehouse full of stuff. Our resellers have plenty of their own stuff as well. So it could be good.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
I don't think we know yet. I think the key facts, and we'll just kind of go back to that a little bit, is kind of what Miles said. There's this line between consumer grade routers and enterprise grade routers.
It's pretty big.
And the line is really fat, really great. Nobody knows, again, it became more relevant recently.
Yep.
We've always talked about it because we've seen opportunities where we've seen enterprise customers putting a consumer grade product into something. I mean, I'll go back to the perfect example is USB sticks in squad cars. Like that makes no sense to me, right?
That
When
is
the
still
critical
happening.
connection, and they still do it because they get a free USB stick.
Oh, there's a stat, and again, I don't want to butcher the stat. It's 40 to 60% of squad cars still use USB sticks. That's today, 2026 numbers. That's unbelievable.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible, to be honest. Like it's horrible. And I think that's so that's the interesting piece. And I think that's the thing that people need to understand. And when you hear statements like routers were put on the FCC, let's say that's not true. The difference is that there is a difference between consumer grade products. Those products, I think that line is clear. And then there's the difference between what's going to happen now going forward. Because just to clarify for anybody, so we don't go on record incorrectly, right?
Yep.
Existing routers are completely not impacted.
Right.
If you're buying it, no matter country of origin, it's not impacted unless it was on.
It's new devices hitting the market, right?
It's the new devices. So additionally, just to clarify too, those devices will have software and firmware updates they've got 1 year, could be longer.
Yeah, I was going to say that's going to be, in my mind, when the whole thing maybe starts becoming more relevant. I think it's March 31st of 2027 is the first tranche of dates for this firmware.
Right. They're saying that support level date. So, and that they said already that there's a possibility. So there could be an extension, but that is relevant. Customers that are managing their devices out in the field, they're doing firmware updates.
Forced to look into it.
Yeah. That's going to put a little bit of a timeline on this situation that I think none of us know at this point. For enterprise and cellular routers, customer equipment from companies like Peplink, Semtech, Digi, these customers that we know, obviously Semtech, Peplink, key brands in our portfolio, they already hold FCC equipment. Again, there's no challenges to that.
And then, by the way, you already know this, but for our audience, a lot of our stuff goes into the 3-letter agencies, state and local government. These things aren't just like going into a house, into a basement. They're going into somewhere that's mission critical connectivity. And so I think it's pretty important to say that. And the other thing I was going to say too is most of our lines, if not all of them, even after the device's end of life, there's firmware and security updates for at least 5 years on most of them. So, while this is hitting this 1 year security firmware update situations going on for the consumer line, if they were to upgrade into something that we do sell, most of our lines do have, a 5 year after end of sale guarantee. Mm-hmm. So all to say is the stuff we sell is secure today, and it will be secure for years to come, which is good to know.
Well, and I think this is part of the supply chain challenges that we see overall, which is protecting supply chain, which I think a lot of this has got a political or negative connotation on it because of the foreign policies and whatever that has to do with it.
And we're rolling with the punches
but
every
it's
day.
Really, it's really not about that. It's about supply chain and making sure we can get the technology too. And that's one of the things that I've encouraged customers, whether it's an OEM customer or it's a channel partner servicing an end user of some sort, an SMB, enterprise, public sector, anything. Think about the vendors you're working with. Think about, regardless of their country of origin, this is not about that. This is about just looking at the validity of those companies, being able to have supply chain that is going to be accessible, that's going to be long-term, that's going to be managed, that's going to have that backing behind it, because there's companies that come and go, and regardless of what this does could impact them very negatively, but also they could just be a negative partner to you if you can't get product.
Yep. Because it doesn't matter how good the engineers are, how good the sales guys are. If you can't implement the thing they're trying to sell, it doesn't matter, right? So, which is where we come in most of the time for supply chain assistance, but it's unknown. Every other day is something new going on, it feels like. And that's been going on since COVID at least, but it's keeps our job pretty interesting, right?
For sure. So you think we'll continue to talk about this topic? My guess is it'll probably end up on another segment.
Yeah, I see 3 months from now. I think there's a 3-month approval span of time for the governments. I think 3 months from now we'll start seeing a better picture of what's the market's going to react to it.
Right.
But again, hopefully in that 3 months, if there's some retail issues, then get wireless in our community is going to be set up pretty well.
Yeah, that was the last point I just wanted to make. Is we kind of looked at, as we talked to the community, what partners should be paying attention to, and I think we've told them, just keep a pulse on it. Don't freak out. Nobody needs to be super upset. Nobody needs to be super concerned.
Read your headlines is what I would say, because I mean that's how we learn about things, at least on the starting block, and just make sure you're informed in the news.
Yeah,
it would hurt to have a customer come up to you and ask you a question you've never even heard of as far as the concept going. So just read your headlines and be up to date on the news.
And then I think the other piece is just be mindful of the devices that you're working with, the vendors you're working with. But I would be even more mindful of the devices you're waiting for, right? Yep. When you're waiting for that next generation, they said, well, this next generation, the 2.0 of something, is currently going to be going through certification. Yep. Know that might be a challenge. That might have a longer timeline than expected. This could impact new devices getting certified, whether that is a product that's currently in development and going through certification soon, or maybe is still 6 months to a year or two down the road.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. And then as Miles mentioned, it's a great opportunity to talk to SMB customers. Talk to them about the consumer-based products that they're using. Especially, you can see that overlap happens in that smaller consumer, or like I would say even SMB market, where they may have been using more of a consumer grade product, and now we want to switch.
Well, 5,000 feet and under, I mean, you can pretty much run anything in there, right? So yeah, those are probably the buildings I would look at right away. If they have something that they're questioning, then I would say call Get Wireless, and we'll get you in front of a rep as far at our bars, or call a VAR and they can loop us in. There's plenty of opportunity out there, and it's just I'm excited to see what comes out of it for everybody.
Yeah, and we'll keep everybody posted. Mm-hmm. So we're going to transition. Each one of these Inside Scoop sessions will just kind of go through those themes, just like we did now. But we'll also mention just different things that we're seeing for what's impacting the partners today. We feel like we have a good pulse of it. Do we know everything? But we're seeing some different impacts and pressures that are happening inside of the channel community. Mm-hmm. One of them I know is always supply chain. So I'm going to throw that one over to you, because I don't write orders every day.
Well, that one's even, that one has a layered topic in my mind, because right now IoT market's going through this chipset issue as far as the memory components are concerned. And the reason why this is an issue is because, unless you haven't heard out there, it's the hyperscalers with AI. It's these very large technology shops that are taking over like the memory of all things, basically, is a very simple way of putting it. So what we're seeing right now is to your point, is behind just getting equipment to produce equipment, right? So getting components to produce equipment is now the finished goods is taking longer and longer. I mean, I've heard somewhere, we're seeing some companies are going from an average of 12-week lead times for our lead time on the distribution level up to 20 weeks now. I've heard before that. I mean, that's probably one of the softer ones, but I've heard upwards of 56 weeks on some stuff, and then beyond that, a year and a half. So again, I'll take this. I'll take 20 weeks as a much better lead time than a year or a year and a half. But this is a real deal. The other thing I wanted to talk about with this chip shortage, as far as the memory is concerned, is I really did think that people were going to be upset and burning down houses because of how much prices are going to go up. But what I found once we kind of went through some of these exercises with our partners is it's the opposite. The end users seem to be pretty well informed. And so whenever we had to tell our partners that prices were going up and they told the end customers, it wasn't that much of a surprise. And I thought, frankly, we were going to be pulling in orders throughout the entire year for every customer under our Rolodex. And the reality of it is we pulled in some for sure to get ahead of this price increases, but like it wasn't that big of a dramatic thing, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
I was getting ready for it to be a whole lot worse than it was, and it really wasn't that bad.
Nobody ever likes to pay more.
No, but
it's good when we have an educated community.
Yeah.
We have a good amount of resellers that can explain it. There's awareness.
Yep.
That's always starts with awareness, always helps people make less of a reaction to things.
Yeah. The biggest thing there is just getting people prepped. I mean, if the line that you sell to your partner isn't currently being impacted, it's just worth, being cautious just in case something happens. Worst case scenario, you're bringing that product, 8 months ahead of time. But beyond that, I would say the real worst case scenario as far as beyond the news of the information to the customer is if you don't know what's going on and they don't know what's going on, you're no longer the trusted advisor, right? I think that's the worst case scenario. Same thing with us. I mean, we only know what we know from our sources, but if I don't know the information or how to get it, then people stop trusting us. So
right.
I think that's the hardest thing to get back beyond any of this other stuff. That trust is impossible to get back once you lose it once.
And that's something we communicate to our vendors because, again, that being the middle of the channel, we have a responsibility to the partners that buy from us and that are our customers every day. So we work with our vendors and we really do. We poke them hard and we ask for good communication and we build really strong relationships with the vendors that we have. So then they feel confident to communicate to us early so we can communicate to our channel partners like very quickly. We can be over communicative, I would say in some cases. And that's different than you would see in like a broadline distributor where they have too many lines to have a great relationship to truly know. And we never get our information from some sort of a bulletin from our vendors, right? We have a great relationship. We have a straight line to their product teams. We know what's going on. We're aware. We're communicating. They're communicating. We're communicating downstream. So I think that's the key too, as you're looking at your vendors you're working with. And the distributor partner you're using. Yeah.
I mean, I know as far as it's something I can always work on, but the oversharing thing is one of my claims to fame for myself. And again, there's a politics to it to make sure you're being PC and all that. And I do my best, but I do find that partners really adhere to knowing more, even if it's too much information sometimes. And so again, I started adopting that philosophy a long time ago, and I share what I know, and people seem to like it for some reason. So.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to be the expert. You just share what you know. I think that kind of transitions us into the kind of the key things that we heard, right? We've heard about the price increases. We've heard about some of these disruptions in supply chain. We've heard about that being primarily because of some of this chip shortages. There's still some tariff related things out there, right? That comes and goes. We've seen some manufacturing relocation based on things like tariffs or other situations. So again, just kind of being mindful of that when you have a vendor that maybe transitions their manufacturing, there could be a downtime. It could be good for you. It could be bad for you, depending on what it is. We're definitely seeing, our market here is we really primarily service North America. So I think the market we're seeing is, how does the US and Canada work together and we were seeing some good, I would say positive things happening with the way that we're able to get better supply chain for Canadian vendors coming into US, vice versa.
Yeah, it's been a lot more involved than I would have ever thought whenever this whole thing got started at Get Wireless. And we do a lot of things behind the scenes that customers will never see. But do you want to talk about one of the highlights with the warehouse up there?
Yeah, so I think that's a good plug for us is we were able to in this last 6 months put in an actual warehouse. We have a team in Canada, something that's been monumental to us. Some might say that's a pretty simple task, but we found that we really did this because the customers are asking and we're pretty proud of it. We're excited to be able to help service that market more quickly, be able to service that group of customers differently because not every reseller is the same. Not every country operates the same. Not every reseller operates the same. We also have a great relationship with all 3 operators in Canada now, which has been a huge push by part of my team. We're really excited about as well.
Yeah, it's interesting learning how the Canada goes to market differently than the United States. We're very VAR heavy and reseller heavy here, and they're very much carrier driven up there. And then resellers go into the carriers, right? But it's 100% carrier. And while here it's just a little more diluted. It's interesting. And then beyond all that, talk about tariffs. I mean, having equipment in country for Canada is nice. Not having to do all these different extra fees for the partners up there, I know is a big one. And then it seems like I'm hearing something new every single week or month that we're trying to get accomplished for the Canada market. But it's interesting seeing it 18 months later, 2 years later, it's becoming more and more mature, which is nice.
Yeah, we're excited about it. So if we have those tuning in, we'd love to have our Canadian team talk with you. Yeah. They're doing a great job and we're really excited about it. I think we'll continue. We're going to be doing some more events up there. We'll be putting more and more inventory. We've got a lot of great vendors up there. Mm-hmm. The last one I'll just mention, and I think it wouldn't be a Get Wireless segment if we didn't talk a little bit about government and public sector, because it's the largest market that we service. So one of the things we've seen is overall the perspective that the partners are giving us is some softness in the government market. And I always want to start with facts. And there's a really good report that I would encourage anybody to look at, which is Forrester just put out a report actually in February. That's the U.S. government tech market report. So if you Google it, you'll find it.
So that was Forrester?
Forrester, yep. Okay. So the analyst company Forrester put that out. So again, very reputable organization, reputable report. But the outlook, coming out of 2025 is about a 4% year over year growth. And it's about 12% of the US tech spending. So again, we're feeling some softness. I think that's legitimate. I know our business is feeling it. Our government team, and we've got a government program, everything like that is feeling a little bit of softness. But I think the outlook is still, there's a great amount of opportunity here and a good amount of growth. It's not going to be the blow the doors off opportunity, but our team is more poised. And I think the channel partners that we have are the right kind of partners that can get 4% or more.
Yeah. Well, last year was an interesting year. I mean, for not to go anywhere near the politics topic, but we did have a department that was implemented last year to reduce spending in government. And I think that took a while of last year. And I saw several deals myself get impacted by that. And so that was last year. And I'm starting to see the opposite happen this year. I'm starting to see big deals that have taken years and years to close, that have, state and federal spending and budget for it. They're starting to hit. I'm starting to see a lot of things starting to hit right now. So I don't know what this year is going to look like as far as percentage growth across that industry. But as far as Team Central goes, which I think is a pretty good emblematic view of Get Wireless on the channel side, things are looking really, really good. Like better than I could have predicted. Like some of the best months or the slowest months of the year is February, for example. And that was one of my best months of the whole time I've been at Get Wireless. Yeah. And I'm just saying that just out loud just to exemplify that things are starting to hit as far as big deals. And I think our partner community should be excited for this year for sure.
Yeah. And I think that is the key theme that we're seeing. We're still very excited about the growth and what's out there. We've got some great programs. I think we'll do another session specific to the government topic as we kind of roll things through, because there's a lot of interest and there's a lot to know. There are challenges, there are red tape, there's lots of things that impact how those deals get done. But 12% of US tech spending. I mean, that's a great opportunity for all of us. And I think we want to work as much as we can with partners. I think this also dovetails really quickly back into one of the themes we've seen with the carriers leaning in. We're seeing a tremendous amount of growth within the carrier communities around their network specifically for public sector and what they're doing, their investments, what their belief is on the opportunity and how they can help and service those types of opportunities. So stay tuned. We'll be doing more on that. Before we wrap up, any other last words you want to share before we adjourn for today?
Well, I want to say thank you for your time on the show. This is exciting. This is one of my favorite things that we're doing right now. I'm excited for channel partners to see everybody listening in right now to come see us at the booth or come schedule me for happy hour, drinks, or whatever it might be, and meetings as well. But no, this is a good time. I appreciate everything you're doing here, Tara. And of course, behind the mic and behind the camera back there, Mr. Cody. This is very exciting for sure.
Yeah, we're excited. We'll actually be coming live from channel partners. If you have any topics you'd love to see, we'd love to hear from you. We'll be doing more of these inside scoop sessions, bringing different guests on, talking about those topics, trying to keep that pulse. So if anybody has anything they'd love to share, you know how to find me. And thank you for joining me today, Miles.
Of course, looking forward to the second one. Maybe in a year from now, we'll see.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tara.